Hello Zimbabwe football fans, welcome to another exciting episode of In Touch with the Legend. Yes, your favorite footballing show. This is where we bring you a Zimbabwe footballing legend to come and share with us their footballing journey. Yes, when we talk about legends, we are talking about pundits, the referees, the reporters, the journalists, the footballers, and the administrators as well of football. So today we have got a legend in the camp. He is a radio journalist, a radio presenter, a football pundit, sports pundit. He does a lot of things. He's going to tell us. I don't know, Karama horses. We find him there. In the horses as well. He's there. Triathlon. He's there. He will tell us how he got into all that in one. We are talking about veteran radio presenter, veteran radio jockey. I don't know how you want to call it, but we've got Marc Pozzo in the house. I started listening to Marc Pozzo when he was still young. He was on radio very young in his career as well. We want to know all about it, how he got there, everything to know about Marc Pozzo. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bunj. So good to be on your show, and thank you for inviting me.
We've done ZFM Stereo Sports together for almost 6 years or so, and I never really got to sit and talk and to know about you. Now we are going to do it together with the listeners. There are a lot of people that have listened to you forever on radio, but they don't really know who Marc Pozzo is. So we're here to actually hear, who is Marc Pozzo? Where were you born? How did it all start?
So Bunj, thanks for having me on your show. It's quite interesting because I've just hit my half century.
50?
I've just hit 50, in January. Yes. I turned 50. I can take you back to 1973.
Yeah.
I was born on the 19th of January, 1973 here in Zimbabwe. Never left, born and bred Zimbabwean. I always grew up loving sport. From as soon as I could hold a tennis racket or a hockey stick or get a ball, I always had something in my hand. I always had something in my hand to play with. And I attended North Park Primary School for grade 1, grade 2 and grade 3. And then one day my dad came home and he said, he had just started his own business at the time, and he said, things are going a little bit better for us. I'm going to send you to a private school. I said, private school? What's the difference between a government school and a private school? So he said, no, I've got you a place at Hartman House.
Where? So
Hartman House, never heard of it. I'd been up to St. George's, seen the castle before.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went from grade 4 to Hartman House, and my very first school teacher was a guy by the name of Paul Ninjarama.
Paul Ninjarama, yeah.
Now, Paul Ninjarama was our grade 4 teacher, but he was also the first team football coach, the volleyball coach, and he was a renowned referee in those days.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I went to Hartman House and straight away came to sport. I tried everything. I was a little bit on the chunky side. But I always tried everything. I learned to play tennis. I could swim. I could play rugby. But I developed a passion for football. And a lot of my peers all went and started playing rugby. And I said, well, you go left and I'm going right, because I think football... Anyway, I became the goalkeeper for Hartman House first team when I was in grade 6. So grade 6 and 7, I played first team football at Hartman House, and then moved up onto the hill to St. George's, where I did my secondary education. Just moved across. So in those days, it was automatic that if you went from Hartman House, you went straight across to St. George's.
It's still happening even now.
I think it is.
Yeah.
So I went across to St. George's. So from being this sort of big little fish, I now became a very small fish in a very big pond with big guys. And I looked at guys, and they were all big. And I look back at them now, and no, they weren't really that big. And I went through St. George's up to Form 4. And there, I love sport. I played cricket. I played cricket with the likes of Grant Flower.
Grant Flower was also at
Grant Flower, John Rennie, Gavin Rennie, who was a little bit younger in those days. I just loved playing sport. I played water polo. I played everything. The only thing I didn't play was rugby, but I got to tell you that we had played a football match against St. John's College in the morning. And in those days, it was compulsory that you had to stay and watch the rugby in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Rugby was the bigger sport.
one of the rugby coaches for the second team, so there was the first team and the main second team, came up to me and he said, I hope you're not changing into your number ones. So I said, no. So he said, well, listen, we're a little bit short. We've got a few injuries. Can I put you on the bench?
Yeah.
So I said,
in the rugby second team?
In the rugby second team.
Okay.
So I said, are you serious? He says, yeah, just go and be a prop and just scrum.
Yeah.
I said, just scrum?
Did you know what this
I mean, obviously knew all about it, but I mean, I hadn't really played. And so I said, okay. So I still had my football boots. They gave me a rugby jersey and I sat on the bench and it was quite exciting. And 50 minutes had gone, 60 minutes had gone. I thought, oh, God, I'm not going to get called on.
Yeah.
Blow me down. 64th minute. Injury. Pozzo, you're on. Tight head prop. And
I'm trying to imagine you never practiced.
And I hadn't practiced, and I ran on and I said, guys, you got to guide me here. You got to tell me what to do. No, don't worry, you'll be under control. Just get down and push. And yeah, so I played 15 minutes of second team rugby. So that I've got that on my wall to say that I played 15 minutes of second team rugby. But I obviously always supported rugby and loved the game, watching it. And I mean, I've followed it throughout my whole life. I only played 15 minutes. Then I'd done my O-levels, and I wouldn't say I was a bad boy, but I didn't like academics.
Okay.
I struggled a little bit with academics.
You just wanted sport.
I wanted sport. I wanted. Yeah. I was ready to get into a career.
Yeah.
And our O-level results came out, and I was going to have to repeat a few O-levels. And I'd driven to school the one morning, and I'd got to school, and I saw my dad in the car park, and he said, I think you better just go home because they don't really want you back for Form 5. I said, whoa, okay. So at 16, I was basically out of school, no job, no career. By then, my dad had his own business, and I said, well, I've always had a passion for his business. As a small boy, I always used to go in there, and I liked machinery and see how things worked. So he said, right, well, the best you can come and work for me. But you're going to start at the bottom. When I'm in the bottom, you're starting in the bottom, in the factory, in an overall, and you clock in and you clock out, and you do it normally.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good thing for me, because yes, at school you got discipline, but suddenly now you're in the big wide world. You're getting a paycheck, a weekly envelope with your money in it.
16 years old.
16 years old.
What did you do with it?
Oh, I had a lot of girlfriend, nightclubs, beers. Then there was a little bit of rent that you had to pay because you're still living at home.
But so they said you give us something. Also.
So I carried on that for many years. Basically, I never really left there, but I always had my side interest, which was always going to be sport.
Yes.
And my uncle at the time was very big into horse racing, and I enjoyed racing. I used to watch it on television, and I started going to the racetrack on a Saturday afternoon. And I thought, well, there's no chance of me ever being a jockey. So I thought, well, maybe
they don't like the boys there.
No, maybe I could do something here, and I don't know what, but
at the horses.
At the horses, I thought, there's something I could do here.
Yeah.
So I carried on going week after week after week.
What was he doing? Your uncle, what was he doing again?
He owned horses, but he was a gambler. He liked gambling.
He was gambling on horses.
He was gambling on horses. He would gamble on 2 ants crossing the table. I mean,
really?
he just loved gambling.
He was a serious gambler.
So I thought to myself, there's something I can do here. So the one day I was out in the front by the finish line, and I looked up, and there was this big commentary box.
Yes.
And I could see through a big glass window there was a guy sitting there with binoculars, and he was the commentator. So I thought to myself, I think I can do that. So I went home, and for weeks and weeks, I took the old race card, and I would get a cassette, and I would have a little microphone, and I would commentate myself. Recording myself. And just practiced and practiced and practiced.
Cassette.
Yeah, with a cassette.
That you
it was a TDK 90 because I could get 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And I recorded and I played it back. And one day I decided to go upstairs to the commentary box.
Wait a minute. You were commentating on which horses? Imaginary or...
Yeah, so I was just taking the horses from the old race card and just calling it and making up my own races just to...
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah, you were imagining your own race by
exactly.
looking at the names. Yeah.
So one day I got the courage and I went upstairs to the commentary box, and I think I was 17, and I knocked on the door, and there was the late Mervyn Hamilton, who was a renowned broadcaster from RBC in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Peter Lovemore.
RBC is Rhodesia Broadcasting Corporation.
Peter Lovemore. I mean, they were renowned. These were renowned men that
Peter Lovemore was the legend.
He was the legend. Yeah. He was the legend. Anyway, I knocked on the door, and they said, "Yes, young man." So I said, "Excuse me, I would like to learn to be a commentator." So they said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Have you been practicing?" I said, "Yes, I have been practicing." So they said, "Right, come next week. We're going to put you in another little room, and you're going to commentate all the races into a tape recorder, and we will then listen to your tape."
Yeah.
So, but they said, it's going to take time. You're going to need to do this for the next month or so. So every Saturday I learned, because now it was real time, but it was just into my recorder.
But in the binoculars, they
gave me the binoculars, and I commentated, and I got better every week.
Yeah.
And one day I had finished, and nobody had asked me for a copy of the tape. So I thought, this is bizarre. I've been doing this for 4 weeks and nobody's asked me anything yet.
They're not even checking on you.
Anyway, blow me down. I was walking out and I walked into Peter Lovemore. And he said, "Oh, young man, how's the commentating going?" So I said, "It's going well." And in my top pocket, in those days you had to go to the race course in a jacket and tie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So in my top of my suit pocket was my TDK 90 cassette. So he leant over and he pulled it out of my pocket. He said, "Are these your recordings?" So I said, "Yes, sir." So he said, "Thank you. I'll be in touch."
Yeah.
And I never heard from him for a couple of weeks, carried on coming to the race course. And then one day he called me on the telephone at home. No cell phones in those days.
Yeah.
And the phone rang, and my mum picked the phone up, and "There's Peter Lovemore on the phone for you." "What? Peter Lovemore phoning me?"
Yeah.
And he said, "I've been listening to your tapes in my car, and you've got potential. Can you come to the next race meeting? Because we're going to give you a chance to commentate on a race."
Maybe one race. Yeah.
One race. At the beginning of the afternoon.
Was it live on radio?
No, it wasn't live on radio, but it was live on the course.
Oh, on the course. Yes.
So, in those days there were a lot of spectators on the course, and I mean that was the main voice.
Yes.
That was the main voice. So, gosh, for a week I was a nervous wreck. I was practicing. I was checking the race card, the colours, because the horse racing you've got to learn the colours, the jockey's colours, and Alois Bunjira's colours are red with a black top, a black cap, or whatever it might be. Anyway, I learned the colours, and I sat in the big chair that I'd been looking down at from before, and I felt quite important. And
big.
Yeah, I felt. I had a lot of feelings going through my mind at the time, because I thought, I've got to do a good job at this. I know I can do it. I'm very, very nervous. And I did it. And basically the rest just turned into a career that I started doing horse racing.
You did one.
I did one, and then...
What did they say?
They said, "Fantastic, we'll put you on the roster." In those days, there were 5 or 6 commentators. So you would get to call maybe a race or 2 races a meeting. Okay, so I started with my 1 race, and then I got on to 2, sometimes I got 3. And I suddenly became one of the voices of horse racing.
Horse racing, yeah.
And the Mashonaland Turf Club then said, we have an evening slot on Radio 1 where every night at 6:30 we have to give the off-course racing results.
Oh, yeah.
Would you be interested in doing it? You do it on the telephone. You just phone into the studio and they cross over to you and you read the results. So I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. I thought there's a chance maybe to get into something in ZBC. And I started doing that, and I started doing it well. And then I don't know if you remember Lawford Sutton Price. So he was also a big racing journalist. He used to do a lot of the television presenting for horse racing. And he used to do a show on a Saturday morning called Racing Grandstand, which every race enthusiast used to listen to because he used to give all the tips. And he invited me onto his show as a guest. I was a guest tipster on that particular day. And he was obviously impressed with what I did. And he said, listen, I'm going on leave for 3 weeks. Would you mind stepping in and doing Racing Grandstand?
Wow.
I said, wow. He said, yeah, you produce it yourself? I said, produce? Yeah, he said, all your content. Gave me some guidelines. And I started doing that.
On which radio?
On Radio 1.
Radio 1, yeah.
On Radio 1. And then I bumped into Simon Parkinson, who was working also on Radio 1, but had just been moved across to Radio 3 to start the breakfast show with Admire Tererera. So in those days, Simon used to do Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Admire used to do Tuesday and Thursday. And I'd never met him before. He was a young up-and-coming broadcaster that ZBC thought very highly of. And he approached me in the corridor one day and he said, I've been listening to some of your sports bits on horse racing and all that. Do you know things about other sport? I said, yes, I'm pretty... I'm
a sports person.
I'm pretty well read on the English Premiership, football, rugby, cricket, whatever, golf.
Yeah.
So he said, I'll be in touch. Yeah. So I said, okay. And then he called me one day and he said, would you like to come up to ZBC? I'm basically now taking over the breakfast show Monday through to Friday. And I'm looking for a co-host to do the sport. So I said, wow. And yeah, that's when I sort of really got into being a DJ, as it were.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had a magnificent time. And we built a partnership that was 10 years of great radio.
I still want to discuss that. I want to know exactly how it started, how it took off, and everything. But for now, we're just gonna go for a break. When we come back, I wanna start from there because that's the beat that I started knowing you now. When you were with Simon Parkinson, because we would wake up in the morning and there is Marc Pozzo and Simon Parkinson already. We want to know more about that. Guys, this is Marc Pozzo in the studio. Yes, he is a legendary radio presenter, legendary radio DJ, as they used to call them, before a producer, also a football pundit on ZFM Sports, as well as a sports presenter on ZFM Breakfast Show Sport. He has got a lot of portfolios, to be honest. So we want to hear all about them. When we come back, we will talk more about him. But the part that I wanted to really, really know about is what we're going to get into in the second segment. Don't move away. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. Yes, we are with the legendary Marc Pozzo. Yes, he's here talking about his life, his journey in radio and in punditry, in all the sports that he has done, and he will get to tell us all about it. Now, the group is powering this show. My name is Alois Bunjira once again. But before we get into the second segment, guys, go to our Facebook page, like the page, and also go to our YouTube channel, like the channel, and subscribe to the channel so that we can always interact with you. Marc, Simon Parkinson calls you and you agree. Then you get into the studio. You were now doing Radio 3 breakfast.
Yeah.
How was the feeling? You now
it was so amazing.
Because Radio 3 was popular.
Radio 3 was so popular. I mean, we had some great DJs in those days.
Yes.
I mean, the lineup used to be Simon Parkinson, Musi Kamala, there was Admire Tederera, James Muradadi, Peter Johns. I mean, the list just goes on.
Peter Johns, was he the radio driver?
The radio driver, PJ the DJ.
PJ the DJ.
He used to do the top 20 between 6 and 7 every evening. I mean, PJ was, if you wanted an album, so in those days we were still on albums and CDs.
Yeah.
The first guy, if a new song came out,
he had it.
PJ had it. There was no downloading in those days, but PJ would have a copy of whatever album.
Where was he getting them from?
He had a contact in the UK that, in those days, I'm sure Air Zimbabwe, when they were flying, the pilots would bring back his copies. So the music that he was playing was always hot. Yeah. It was hot off the press. Excuse my pun, because it was brilliant.
And before that, there was no 75% local and everything. It was just music.
Yeah, look, the 75% local content has always been there. It's always been there. It's as long as I can remember.
It's only that people were not just following it.
Yeah. Look, I think legislation might have changed. Nobody says when you've got to play your 75% local content. You've got a 24-hour window to do it in. So I was suddenly now amongst some really great personalities.
Were you not nervous?
I was nervous, but I was always the organized one, and I think that's what built our friendship and our business together, in that we both complemented each other in certain areas. I was the organized one, Simon was the disorganized one. But when we put everything together, it was a hell of a show.
It was.
So that's where we started the 3FM breakfast show. Then we decided that this is going well. We were bringing in a lot of business for ZBC in those days. A lot of sponsored features. That's how we sort of got into the marketing side of radio.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
And we then decided there's a gap missing here. There's no sport. We talk about sport in the morning, but there's nothing in the afternoon. Yeah. So at the time, Admire Tederera was the station manager of Radio 3.
Radio 3, yeah.
So we went and sat with Admire and we said, listen, we want to do a sports show, Monday to Friday, and we want to call it Live at 5. 30-minute show, news at 5, 5:02 to 5:32, a sports show. And it was the most amazing thing that took off. Like, you can't believe. We had interviews. We had people in the studio. At that time, Zimbabwe cricket was on a massive high. The Warriors were doing well. Rugby was doing well. I mean, everybody wanted to be on Live at 5.
The sporting world was good. And even boxing, even athletics were...
Triathlon had just come on. Triathlon Triathlon had just become a sport in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Marc Marabini was the first sort of flagship triathlete we ever had in the country.
He was big.
He was a tough guy, and he, to do triathlon is
he needed to be tough.
Yeah. So we sort of helped kick off triathlon and got it out there because of our sports show, because of our breakfast show.
So you were going there twice in the morning?
Yeah, so I'd go in the morning, and then I'd go and do my day job during the day, and I would go back in the evening to ZBC.
Yeah.
Then I got roped into ZBC News, where Love Mobanda called me the one day and he said, I'm the only sports presenter doing news 7 days a week. Can I put you on the roster? So I said, okay. Guess which days he gave me? Saturday and Sunday.
But you still needed to go to your horses also.
I went to go to the horses on Saturday afternoon, and then I would be ready up at the hill, which is just next door, for the 8 o'clock news.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll tell you a funny story with the news. I'd been doing news for about 3 months. Sports news on ZBC at the end of the main news. So there was either Colin Harvey or Dave Emberton or I'm just trying to think. There was who else? The names will come to me.
John Martini. John Martini was also not there.
John had gone by the time I had joined, and I thought Noreen Welsh was there, but she was mainly during the week. Anyway, so I thought, why do I have to come and read the news in a full suit every Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah.
It's bizarre. So the one day I arrived and I had a shirt on with a tie, my jacket, a pair of slops, and my shorts. So the producer at the time, he looked at me and he started laughing. So I said, well, there's nothing to laugh about. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to read the news, you're not going to see anything. So they were all laughing, the camera guys were all laughing, and we had a good joke about it. I came the next week, and the producer at the time called me. We were about 10 minutes away from the news, and he said, I hope you've bought trousers. So I said, no. He says, no, because we've changed the news tonight. You've got to walk onto the set. I said, no, you've got to be joking. He said, no, I'm telling you, we've changed it. But he was just pulling my leg. And we had a big joke about it and laughed about it. But yeah, I've got to tell you, I had great times on the hill.
Yeah.
We were a great bunch of guys.
So you were doing television and radio as well. You were still doing the breakfast with Simon Parkinson.
Yeah, and I was still producing for the Mashonaland Turf Club, all their racing programs.
That's a lot of work.
There was a lot of work involved, and I was busy 7 days a week.
That's easy.
And you try and fit in a little bit of exercise and try and fit in some golf, and so life was busy, and I was young. But
then you also said you went into marketing.
Yeah, I went into marketing, and I did a lot of producing of radio shows and concept writing, creative writing for a number of companies. And it became a bit of a business.
You didn't learn this?
No, I was just all self-taught. I was just self-taught.
Yeah.
I'm one that always looks for an opportunity. I'm always looking, when I'm driving, believe it or not, I look at every billboard that goes up.
Yeah.
I like to see what that company's doing, what Neradzo is doing, where they're advertising, how they're advertising.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I have a good memory, so I sort of just store that in the back of my mind. And when somebody comes to me and says, I've got a concept and I've got an idea, can you make it a concept? I think I can do it pretty well.
That's good, yeah.
So moving on, so Simon and I then became, obviously we were business associates, but we became very, very close friends.
Yes.
In fact, we became best friends, and later on we became family.
Yeah.
Because I married his wife's sister.
Oh, no. Now he's your brother-in-law.
So from my work partner to my radio partner, to my best friend, he was now my brother-in-law.
Now you're married in the same family.
Now we're married into the same family.
Wow.
we were laughing because my wife's family, they're 5 children, 2 girls and 3 boys.
Yeah.
So my mother-in-law once said, luckily there wasn't another girl in the family, because I think maybe Kelvin Sifilani might have married the other daughter.
Yeah,
he's another great character.
Oh,
Kelvin Sifilani is a fantastic guy, and I worked with him a lot. He was a professional, absolute professional. He was very, very popular with all communities. He played good music. He talked well. He was a true professional. Yeah. And his father Morrison was just as good. He was a great man, and I think he did a lot for Zimbabwe football.
Yeah, he did. He did. You know, he is actually a big legend, of which if he was still alive, would have been very privileged to actually have him here to talk about it, because he's actually one of the founder members of Dynamos.
Correct.
You know, we still need to have a founder member of Dynamos here. I think there's only 2 left. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2 that are still alive, including the one who owns the club right now. We would want to have him here so that they can actually tell us about the history of Dynamos, because sometimes we don't really understand. But Morrison Svelani, definitely, he was one of those. So
I'll tell you another story talking about football. We got a call one day at ZBC, and the Warriors were playing, I think it was Egypt, at Rufaro Stadium.
Yeah.
And we had been challenged by Robson Shuruku, who was working at the Herald at the time as the chief sports editor. They wanted a football match between ZBC and the Herald.
Okay.
Well, the journalists against electronic. So they called themselves the pen pushers, and we were the electronic.
Yeah.
So we got called in. I can't remember. I think Admire might have been coordinating the whole thing. So he came in and he said, "Right, you guys want to play at Rufaro Stadium?" We said, "Yeah." So Simon and I went and played. It was fantastic, but I got to tell you that we lost by 1-0
to the pen pusher.
To the pen pushers, and the goal was scored by Simon Parkinson, who scored an own goal. And I'll never let him forget that. In those days, Rufaro Stadium, we were the curtain raiser to the national game. Rufaro Stadium was jam packed that day, jam packed,
and he scored an
own goal.
Nice.
So we've had some great times.
So how did you leave ZBC? You no longer at ZBC. Right?
Yeah.
How did you leave?
What happened was in about 2001, Simon decided that he needed to move on. His wife was working in the airline business, and she was transferred to Cape Town. Okay. So he was sort of commuting backwards and forwards, but he said it wasn't working out and he needed to be in Cape Town full time. So he left. So I carried on doing Live at 5. By then, the Breakfast Show, I don't know who had taken over the Breakfast Show then. And one day I got a letter to say that my services were no longer required at ZBC.
Oh.
So it was a little bit disheartening, but I still carried on my horse racing through
After
ZBC.
How many years? You had stayed at ZBC for how many years?
I joined ZBC when I was 18 years old, so I'd probably been there 9 years.
Oh, that's long. Yeah.
And so I sort of took a little bit of a break from mainstream broadcasting, but I was still doing horse racing. By then videography had become quite big, filming. I joined Joy TV. I did a few shows for Joy TV. So I sort of kept my hand in it all the time, but I was missing radio. I love radio.
Yeah.
And so it was a long break. I got on with my commercial career in my family business.
Did you carry on with the marketing side?
I carried on with the marketing side, but I got more involved in our family business, and that basically took up most of my time. But I was really missing broadcasting, and then the best thing happened to me 10 years ago was when I got a call from Super
Yeah, I was going to ask.
So Super and I obviously worked at ZBC together.
Yes,
he was head of current affairs. So we crossed paths a lot. And he said, would you be interested? And I said, absolutely. And in fact, I'll never forget, we had our first sort of meeting with all the new presenters, and that's where I sort of officially met you. Was at that meeting, and they said, right, you're going to be the main sports guy. Here's your analyst. His name's Alois Punjera. I said, I've watched you play football. I know exactly who you are. And that's where you and I sort of got to know each other and worked together for all those years. And I've got to say that I think I am now myself and Tony Friday, I think, are the longest serving employees. So ZFM started on like a Wednesday, and I was away in Mozambique when they went on air, and I only got back on the Thursday, but I was on the Friday. So I wasn't on the very first day of broadcast, but you could say I've been there from day one.
Yeah, I'm the only one who was there from day one.
You and Tony?
No, Tony left. Tony once left.
Did he once leave?
Yeah, Tony once left a bit. So I always tell him that we don't include you on the longest serving. We don't
well, then it's you and me.
Because you have left before and you came back. But it's me and you who have been there from the beginning to this day. How has it been, though, with the CFM Sport?
It's been good. It's obviously I love the breakfast show. I've worked with some great teams. I started off with TK and Tintin, then I had TK and Misread, and then we've had a few others, Captain Awesome, and now I've got Simbi Limbi and Noxie, who are great on breakfast. Simbi is a great guy, and I think he is a top broadcaster. Misread is fantastic, and she's become a very good friend of mine, and she does a great job in the afternoon on the drive time show. So we have a lot of banter between the drive time and the breakfast show. But again, with the sport, we developed the evening sports show, and it was Susan McCory, who was CEO at the time, said to me, what about Barry and Mike? So I said, but they're working on the Hill at ZBC. So they said, I've heard via the grapevine that they're not happy. Can you look into it? So I gave Barry a call one day and I said, let's go and have a coffee, you, me and Mike. And basically the rest was history. They came along and joined, and this evening sports show was Mike, Barry, myself, you. Who else did we have on there before Chris Gray came on? I can't remember who else was on there.
No, it was just us.
It was just the four of us. And then Chris Gray came on, and then there was five of us. And then COVID hit. And we were doing recordings, and it just wasn't the same. But at the same time I was trying to keep down a full-time job running a business, doing the breakfast show, and then coming back to ZFM in the evening, and I just felt it was just taking up a little bit too much time. And I think that I had given what I could give to that show, and it was now Barry, Mike, and yourself to take that show to another level, which you guys have done. I can tell you, I listen to the evening sports show at least 3 times a week.
Is it?
At least 3 times a week.
Yeah.
I'm in my car driving home from work or wherever it might be. And I love it. I love the interaction. I love the way the show is produced. Sean does a great job with the producing. I love the interviews. I like the controversy. I like the opinions. So I think if you said to me what was, and I'm not being biased, the greatest sports show on radio in Zimbabwe is Z Sport, without a question. I don't think any of the other stations even come close to what Z Sport produces.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we enjoy it. It's actually quite lovely because we just free. We just air our opinions while giving,
which is good, and that's what it's about.
Because the script is not
it's not rigid.
We're not restricted at all. We've got the freedom. Right, we're just going to go for a break. When we come back, we want to talk more about your ups and downs on radio, and then we're going to talk about Zimbabwean football. What do you feel, and how do you think things are going, and what can be done to make our football in Zimbabwe better? Let's just wait. Let's just go for a break, guys. When we come back, we talk more to Marc Pozzo and hear what he thinks about the Zimbabwean football. Don't move away.
Introducing the self-service portal. Nyaradzo has launched its very own self-service portal. This platform is available to Nyaradzo clients via the Nyaradzo Group website. Now you have your policy information readily available for your convenience. The self-care platform enables you to view your policy details, lives assured, policy plan type, and contact details. Edit your information, email, residential address, phone number, view your payment history, and outstanding balance. You are now able to make payments using mobile money platforms, EcoCash and One Money. You can get updated Sawira Berudi change rates. The portal also provides a summary of the product offerings under life insurance, which includes the 6-pack, Skull Pack, and SIP policies. You can get a quote on the different policy types and apply online. Visit nyaradzo.co.zw and enjoy autonomy in your interaction with Nyaradzo.
Welcome back, In Touch with the Legend. Yes, we are with the legendary Marc Pozzo. If you're just joining us, telling us about his career in radio and television. Marc, so you decided to scale down, drop to ZFM Sport Breakfast, right?
Yeah.
So that's where you are.
That's where I am.
That's where you are, right? From ZBC all the way to ZFM Stereo Radio. What can you say that these are my lowest moments in radio? I wanted to speak in Shona. You
carry on. I know exactly where you're going. My lows.
Yeah, your lowest points on radio.
I think the lowest point for me, Bunj, was when I was told by ZBC that my services were no longer required, because I think I was just beginning to peak in my career.
Oh, yeah.
I'd started at a young age, and I was just starting to get into my own. That I always played second fiddle to Simon.
Oh yeah.
Simon was the number one, and I was the number two. But I never had a problem with that.
Yeah.
I never had a problem with that. But I had gained the confidence in myself, and had the ability and the knowledge that I could do this alone. And for me to get that letter to say my services were no longer required it hurt, I've got to tell you. Yeah. But I knew there was always going to be opportunities one day. I knew the airwaves would open up one day, and yes, I had to wait a bit. But as they say, you wait for good things to come to you, and they do come to you. And I can certainly say that I've loved ZFM from the day I joined, and I love the people I work with. I love what I do, and I just love radio. And regardless of where you put me, whatever country you told me I had to go, as long as I was on radio, and as long as I could do what I know and do what I do best, I'm good.
Any embarrassing moments?
Any embarrassing moments? I think probably when I was commentating, I had a few embarrassing moments. There's always so many. They're so hard to come to mind. I mean, technology suddenly grew. In the ZBC days, all our scripts were they're either handwritten or they were typed. And I remember one day we were playing around, and I can't remember if it was Kelvin Sifilani at the time who came and took my script away from me. I was doing something and gave me the script from the day before.
Yeah.
And I started reading, and I thought, I got halfway through, I go, I'm sure I read that yesterday.
Yeah.
And then they were all laughing in the background. Yeah. So there's always lots of funny moments in radio. But yeah, it's been a great journey.
Your greatest moments on radio?
My greatest moments on radio, I think, interviewing some of the most influential sporting people around the world.
If you can name them, some of them.
I've interviewed Bob Hawke, the former Australian Prime Minister, Nick Price on numerous occasions, Shane Warne.
Where's Nick Price?
Nick Price is in America now.
Oh, okay.
He's obviously retired from golf and lives in the US.
Does he have a home here?
He doesn't have a home here anymore. But he's heavily involved in designing golf courses in the States. Shane Warne, the legendary cricketer, he was fantastic, and I was saddened at his passing, because that was probably one of the greatest interviews I've ever done. We actually had to do it 3 times because we were laughing so much, because there were just so many funny moments. That he's just a genuine all-round good guy. That he was fantastic to interview. I toured with Zimbabwe Cricket in 1998 to New Zealand as their press manager. So I got to interview a lot of former world cricketers, Michael Holding, Sir Richard Hadley, Sir Ian Botham, Mark Nicholas, great broadcaster. So I can say that I can go on my board and say that I've interviewed some very influential sporting personalities in my time.
Let's move to football.
Yeah.
Which team do you support here in the country?
In this country, Caps United.
How did you come to support Caps United?
So I can tell you I've been a Caps supporter since 1984.
Wow.
Just because Shaki Tauro was one of my boyhood local heroes.
Shakman Tauro, yeah.
Shakman Tauro, Joel Shambo.
Yeah.
Duncan Ellison was playing at the time. Yeah. And obviously through Bruce Grobler, who played golf with my dad, that's how I got to meet Bruce Grobler. And he came to Zimbabwe. He had just started playing at Liverpool. And I told my friends that Bruce Grobler is coming to my house today.
Yeah.
And I think I had 20 friends waiting at the gate. Because they had just heard there's this guy from Zimbabwe, he's gone to play for Liverpool. Yes. And he's coming to your house? I said, yeah, he's coming to my house. And so obviously that's when I started supporting Liverpool.
Whoa, that's how support Liverpool.
But through Bruce Grobler, Graham Boyle, Duncan Ellison, I supported Caps United and still support Caps United. I've got a soft spot for Chicken Inn. Yeah. But Caps United, if you said to me, I just liked their progress a few seasons ago, a few years ago. I just liked the way they did things. Yeah. But Caps United all the way.
Caps United all the way.
Yeah.
Who has been your greatest player at Caps United since you started supporting Caps
Greatest
United?
Player, because I like goalkeepers.
Yeah.
I would say Brendan Masiska.
Oh, Brendan! I thought you were going to say Duncan Ellison.
No, Duncan was a good keeper, but
Brendan
Masiska for me I thought he was a great goalkeeper.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna put you on the spot now. I wanna hear your greatest Caps United first 11.
My greatest Caps United first 11.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go Brendan Masiska.
In goals, yes.
I've got to get them all in positions. Give me a few names that I would.
Kuzita Ruinga, Mpumelelo Toa, Edobet Dina, Cheche Period. They all played at the right back.
In that era. Okay, let's go left back. We'll come back to right back.
Left back, there's been Sais Torindo, there's been Ephraim Zimbiri, There's been Enkobet Kahuni. Who else has played left back for Mpumele Lutoa? Has played left back for Caps. Charles Johan.
Okay, I'm just going back. Well, I've got to think. I mean, in that era, obviously you had Shaki Taro, Joel Shambo.
Okay, just give me your best players at Caps United. Okay, just give me the names.
So obviously Joel Shambo, Shekman Taro, Brenham Siska, Duncan Ellison. Did James Takavadi play for Caps United? He played for Tornadoes.
Yeah, he played for Tornadoes. Not Caps United.
I'm trying to think. Sticks Matizwe was a great player. He left Caps and went to Black Rhinos.
Together with Stanley Ndunduma.
Yeah. Stanley Dunduma was a great player. They used to call him Senior. Stanley Senior Dunduma.
Okay. The Zimbabwe national team. Your greatest Zimbabwe national team.
The dream team.
Yeah. No, I want number one.
Oh God, Bunch.
The dream team.
The dream team. 1 to 11, as it is.
The dream team was the best. It was a very good side.
Yeah.
It brought the nation together.
100%.
The atmosphere that it brought to the nation. But Zimbabwean football is in the doldrums.
Yeah.
At the moment. What do you make of it?
It's sad. It's exceptionally sad, and it's something that needs urgent attention. We can start. Before we even get into the administration of Zimbabwe football, let's go to our facilities.
Yeah.
Our facilities are poor.
Very.
One of the poorest, I think, in the world. I mean, I can go to the UK and go to a 4th division side, Bury United, and their facilities at their small stadium, which might hold 15,000 people, runs rings around any facility we've got in this country. How difficult is it to put proper seating, proper turnstiles,
and
proper grass, proper infrastructure at your stadiums? You don't have to have 50 stadiums. Have 5. Even have 3. 1 in Bulawayo, 2 in Harare, whatever it takes. But there's no way this country will ever hold a major footballing event as long as you and I are living, unless somebody jumps around and builds proper stadiums. We can go to South Africa. You've played there. Look at the stadiums that you've played in there. The stadiums there are fantastic. You can't even compare it. You can't even compare it. And they are just our neighbors.
You can't even start.
I mean, they're 1,000 kilometers away from us.
Yeah.
Why are we not doing that? And it's sad that we have so many talented footballers. It's a football-loving nation. Guys, it's simple. Put your money and develop football. Administration has been...
We're supposed to do
the facilities. They should be done by the town council. So whether it's Harare Metropolitan should be responsible for Rufara Stadium, the National Sports Stadium, any surrounding grounds in Harare. Same with Bulawayo, same with Masringa, same with Manicaland. Those provinces should be running those stadiums, and you know what? Those stadiums would generate. They would pay for themselves in 3 to 5 years.
But why do you think they're not doing it?
I don't know, and it's sad because the longer we leave it, the worse the situation's going to get.
Yeah.
Okay, we've been slapped on the knuckles with this ban. We haven't played any international football. I read yesterday that we're going to have our qualifiers for the World Cup. Is it for the World Cup? World Cup qualifiers?
World Cup qualifiers.
But we're not going to play any of our home games on home soil because none of our stadiums meet the CAF requirements.
Yeah.
That is disappointing. That is disappointing. How do you expect football fans, football players to carry on doing what they love when you can't even go and watch your national team in your own country? It's sad.
Yeah, it is bad. And administratively also, it hasn't been...
Administratively, it has been poorly run, greed. If you said to me today, can you go and form a board of members to run Zimbabwe football? I'd go and appoint a board in 5 minutes. I could identify exactly who would be needed to run football in this country. Absolutely to the T, and say, guys, that's the mandate. Return football to the glory days. Make it the dream team number 2. And with those identified people, football will be back on the map for us. You've got to have the right people, Bunj. People who are passionate about football, not about dollars.
Yeah.
Yes, money comes with it. Nobody works for free. But people like you who are passionate about football, you've learned football administration. I know you and I have these discussions about professionalism at local teams, and you go to a press conference and the banner's falling down, or the players are not dressed properly. You know, it's all simple things that can be rectified very easily with the right people in place.
Yeah.
Football is Zimbabwe's number 1 sport, and the right people need to be running football.
I do agree. You know, the other thing that we don't really make an effort to actually take football as a business.
Yeah.
And I actually think even you in your business, in the marketing world, you're actually losing out.
Absolutely.
On football, because you can actually be in massive business if football is big. It's a low-hanging fruit for your profession.
Don't forget the spin-offs for a football industry, for an economy, for the tourism industry. I mean, you just look at South Africa, and I'm going to use them as an example. Look at what the 2010 World Cup did for South Africa.
Yes.
The tourism it brought in, their GDP rose dramatically because there was an influx of tourists. Hotels were busy, restaurants were busy, beer sales were good, whatever it might be, whatever business you're in, you are going to get the spin-off of football.
Yes. I like when you say the GDP. The GDP. It seems like we don't realize it in Zimbabwe, that football can actually play a very big part in Zimbabwe's economy. You know, you can actually put it in the top 5 when it's running properly. The top 5 industries that are actually up there pushing the Zimbabwean GDP. But I don't think we realize it enough, because I've heard people in football saying football is a loss-making business.
Never.
I sit there and look. I've been in football long enough. I've lost my money in football. I've lost money through football.
He's only lost his money in football if he was having a bet and his team lost. That's the only time you're going to lose.
Yeah. I don't understand how if you get into football, how you lose all your money. But I actually think that's where there's a lot of money. It's actually an industry on its own. It's like tourism. It's like your mining industry. It's like your finance. I don't understand why people take.
Look at world football. Look at the big clubs in the world. The Liverpools, the Manchester Uniteds, the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids, the Manchester Cities.
Yeah.
They're big in the UK, but they're bigger in Asia. They're bigger in India, bigger in China, America. And
the amount of money they bring in.
I think Manchester United sell more shirts in Asia than they do in the UK.
Yeah.
So what is that telling you? What is the tourism every week going to watch a football match? Say there's a stadium of 40,000 people watching a game. I'll have a bet with you that probably 10 to 15,000 are foreigners visiting that country to support their football team.
Yes.
And they are contributing to the economy. They're staying in a hotel, they're hiring a motor car, they're using the transport system. It's endless. They're buying a shirt.
What we also fail to realize, if you look at a country like Nigeria, they've got thousands of Nigerian footballers that are playing football in Europe and all over the world. The amount of money that they bring back to Nigeria, you can actually think about that amount of money. Now, recently I had Mwango Kanu is now the chairman of Enyimba, where Finidi George is. The amount of money that they have been bringing into Nigeria, infrastructure development, just the remittances that they bring in, and the amount of transfer money that the Nigerian clubs get, and it's foreign currency into the economy.
Yeah.
We don't realize that if we develop our players very well, they go to Europe, it's money for the country, not just for their families. It's actually money into the country. I don't know why we fail.
Develop the infrastructure.
Yes.
The infrastructure is the first step you've got to get right.
Yes.
Get the infrastructure right, and the rewards. You will see the rewards.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had enough money to go and find a piece of land and build a football stadium, and make it work, because I know I would make it work.
Yes.
7 days a week.
Done properly to work.
Done properly.
Done properly to work.
Yeah.
It will work. Mark, last
Bunch.
but not least, thanks for coming. But
Thanks,
last
Bunch.
but not least, I just
Yeah.
want to ask you one question.
Yeah.
Last one. Who is the greatest Zimbabwean footballer of all time in your eyes?
Greatest Zimbabwe footballer of all time, George Hire.
On that note, thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming.
Bunch.
Guys, Marc Pozzo says George Hire is the greatest footballer in Zimbabwe of all time. It was nice having Marc Pozzo in the studio, the legendary journalist, legendary disc jockey. Yeah, are you a DJ?
I'm a DJ. I'm a bit of a DJ. Yeah.
A lot of
I can
guys,
play. I can mix a few
They
tunes.
refuse to be called DJs. They want to be called producers.
Oh no, that's all fancy stuff.
Thanks so much. Yeah, that was Marc Pozzo, guys. If you're just joining us, you are late, guys. We are out of time. I am out of here. Nyarazo Group was powering this show. Let's meet again next week when we bring you another footballing legend to come here and share with us their story. But for now, we are out. Ta ta ta. See you next week.